All right, does anybody have any questions before we start? So, we did the quantity theory of money and derived some equations last time. Oh, I hate when somebody shuts down my computer. So, what was the equation of exchange? Equation of exchange. MV M times V equals, yes, P times Y. Okay, so you can think of this being real GDP, the quantity of goods and services, this being the price level, which gives us nominal GDP, the dollar value of all final goods and services produced within the nation's boundaries over the course of a year. How did we pay for that stuff? We paid for it with money. That money was spent an average number of times. And so that was the equation of exchange. Then we did that little math trick, was where we left off. When we multiply two variables together, when we think about how these things change, which is really the heart of what this material is about, is if we change the money supply by this much, or if the economy slumps, or if the price level goes up, right? So we're kind of thinking about changes. That little math trick was just that the percentage change in M plus the percentage change in V, the sum of two things that are multiplied up here, it turns out the percentage change of the sum of the percentage changes, gives us this relationship. Which now gives us some insight to the quantity theory of money as opposed to just the equation of exchange. So the quantity theory of money is derived from the equation of exchange. And the theory is that velocity being pretty stable, it doesn't change very much. It's very close to zero. And therefore, the percentage change in money supply has a relationship with the percentage change in the price level and GDP. And so the last thing we left was switching those two things around, which I won't even do. So we had the difference between the money supply growth and output growth being what makes the price level change. Okay. I think it's time to, oh wait, I want to do one little step before we work a problem. We're going to work some problems today. Okay, we looked at this one last time. And this was this shifting down of this one-to-one relationship. So the first thing we kind of went through was that this changes by 3%, this changes by 3%. And now we've got this a little more sophisticated look. We didn't do this in principles class. A little more sophisticated look that there's a relationship with real GDP too. So as the economy grows, that's going to have an impact on inflation as well. And so that has this shifting down, but we see approximately that one-to-one relationship in the long run. In the short run, it's a different story. So this is data, remember, from 1870s. These are all data points for the United States all the way up to the 2000s. And then here is country data of the same from different countries, and we kind of get a similar look. So economists in general think that the relationship in the long run is pretty solid.
That looks like it's like the 2000 to 2010 looks almost more like a 2-to-1 relationship, which would be a big difference.
Okay.
I don't know if that.
And here's some 2000 to 2010 too, but here.
Yeah, just because the scaling's different on the right graph.
Over here?
Yeah, so for example, you look at Zambia and it's 35 in comparison to like 17.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of falls off. And this is just one, this is over the 2000 to 2010 time frame only.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of more of a cross-sectional time of the average relationship between money growth and that. So yeah. Again, that's what makes it a theory. So the theory would be on what that would look like. In the real world, we find other variables affecting the things as well. Okay. And the reason we have the theory is that should countries pursue buying their stuff with printed currency? It's kind of the moral of the story. And this is suggesting that no, that's probably not a good idea. We're going to do a little case study on Zimbabwe here in a little bit too. Here is the short run picture. And the short run picture isn't quite as obvious with the growth and inflation. So notice here we've got going down, this going up. And if we have this one-to-one relationship, these would be moving more in concert with each other. And I think this was done with like a 2-year lag on the money supply changes that were done. So short of the story is the quantity theory of money, through what economists have tested, doesn't hold as much water in the short run over a shorter period of time. And we've seen that, you guys have observed that with some of the papers and stuff that you've done, because what has the Fed done since 2008 in terms of money supply growth? Has it been increased or decreased? Since 2008, financial crisis time frame, have they been jacking her up or slowing her down? Increasing in a big way or just a little way? In a big way. So all the stuff that we've been looking at, this has been increases in the monetary base of unprecedented amounts. It's just been huge. And how has inflation skyrocketed in the United States? Do we have 18% inflation? Do we have 15% inflation? Do we have 10% inflation? Do we have 3% inflation? We're getting close, but it's still been 1 to 2%. So basically, inflation has remained relatively flat. If we were to look at the diagram here as we move forward here, we've got money growth going up and inflation staying pretty flat. Okay, for reasons that we've talked about with excess reserves and other things too. Okay, so problems. Okay, this is number 21 out of the back of your book. Suppose the money supply. Suppose the money supply. I didn't need to write that out. Money supply M is growing at 10% per year. And nominal GDP, which is PY from our quantity exchange equation of exchange, has been growing at 20%. So M and PY, we're going to look at 2010, 2011, 2012, 100, 110, 121, that's our 10%, 1,000, 1,200, 1,440 is our 20%. Calculate velocity. Each year and the rate it's growing. Okay, I forgot to grab a printout. I don't want it today, so I'll let you guys get started on that. Feel free to work together on it. I'll be back in a couple minutes.
No, you're fine. I'm almost done.
Looking good, looking good. And
Doing
good.
right?
Yeah, and then with that last part, with the rate it's growing at. So did you?
Share the rate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, do you want to work on? Such micros. I need my glasses on. Yeah, that looks good. And did you? Okay, so this is your growth rate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you doing? Try to get to 2 decimal places is usually good.
does not equal.
Okay, 10.9. Yep, you're on the right track. And how'd you get that number? Yeah. Well, the velocity, is that your velocity number? Calculate the velocity each year and the rate at which it's growing.
Yeah, the velocity.
Okay, how'd you do that?
We definitely know what we're doing. Bad luck with that problem.
Well, you can actually calculate it with the numbers.
Well,
Well, it's,
you want the exact.
it's a little too sloppy, yeah. Yeah. You get the-
How do you get the rate for this round?
Okay, yeah, so you look good here. So percentage, you can do it the same way we do for the other thing. New number minus the old number divided by the old number.
For
Should end up
each-
being about
for
9%.
For each year?
Yeah, yep. So go back to new number minus old number divided by old number. So, yeah, just go from year to year. Nicole, how would you? Yeah, you're on the right track. Yeah, so then that next year would be 11.9. Okay. And then the rate of change between these two, new number minus the old number divided by the old number, should give you about 9%. But I'm only asking for the velocity change. We already knew that this was 10%. That was given in the problem. But you're right, that's how we did it. 110 minus 100 divided by 100 would be 10%. So I asked for the rate of change of velocity. So 10.9 minus 10 divided by 10. Okay. Looks like you guys are on the right track.
The only example we have isn't valid for the problem.
We're going to do another one here. Calculate what happens to nominal GDP
No, you're right, because I want you to know that this isn't, these don't work
if
together.
velocity remains constant. At 5%. I'm sorry, not 5%, at 5, we're measuring velocity, not the rate of change of velocity, remains constant at 5, and the money supply increases from 200 billion to 300 billion. So we got growth of the money supply, 200 to 300, velocity constant at 5. What happens to nominal GDP?
I am. Then 50% change on that side because delta V is 0 if it's just staying at 5. Then all of that 50% should just transfer directly over. In GDP,
I said increased by 500 million, 50 million.
Well, I don't know if it would be specifically by that, because I don't know what the number is, but I know that it's a 50% change. of the time.
So if you argue
That was-
100% of the time,
That was only
then-
in transition, but.
I think this is bullying.
That stuff's upside down.
This is getting borderline here. I might have to call somebody.
Don't worry.
Maybe.
We got some people
Literally called me an empty set.
Oh, carbon. Or is this a joke?
Oh, for goodness sake, where is this?
Empty sets have feelings too, so.
Technically, they don't, but you have to.
Oh,
I'll write it for you.
Corbin is empty sets, Corbin has feelings, contradiction, therefore Corbin is not empty sets. I wasn't sure where you were getting the numbers, that was the source of the confusion there.
Yep. Good. Yep. You got it. Well, you can calculate what real GDP is, what you're doing here. So 200 times 5 is 1,000. Right? It's 1,000, billions or trillions or whatever. It's a trillion. So, and then you got that. And so now the next step is figuring out how you're going to get that, what the increase. So we have a money supply going from here to here. So think about what that's going to look like. Velocity's constant. You guys off the schneid over here? Good. Okay, yeah. So you got that. Yep. That will work. Got it?
I think so.
Work with the equation of exchange. It's actually a hell of a lot easier.
Okay.
So velocity is constant at 5. The equation of exchange, MB equals PY. PY is what nominal GDP is, right? So 5 times 200 is 1,000. And so that's a trillion.
Okay.
And then the next year it climbs to that. And then you got it.
Okay. So you just want to substitute this B for 5?
Yep. Yeah.
And
So
then do the same thing? 100 times 5?
So I'm using the equation of exchange. So we're solving for the thing on the right-hand side, right? So money is 200. Velocity is 5. 200 times 5 is 1,000. So that's nominal GDP. Next year it climbs to 300. 300 times 5 is 1.5. So it climbed from 1,000 to 1,500. And then that'll be a 50% increase. You're stuck?
Oh, no, we just talked about it.
Well,
You
I'd
want us
like,
to write it down?
yeah, that's the whole purpose here. Sometimes it doesn't go as smoothly.
So I would say 200 times 5.
Calculate the levels too. Calculate what happens to nominal GDP. So a nice complete answer will have the levels. Increases by 5. Okay, 50. I couldn't see your little 1 there. Okay, got it. Good.
What are you looking for?
Yep. Okay, did you guys get her knocked out? You were hung up on those percentage changes?
No, it's a 50% change, 500.
Right, but I do want the levels too. So this one we just kind of went back to the equation of exchange. 200 times 5 is 1,000. 300 times 5 is 1,500. And then you can calculate your 50%, but make sure you got both the levels and the percentage changes. Okay, since we're having so much fun, we got one more. Make sure you guys are on track here. Is this thing just not following me? Or I have this good for Taylor and others. Okay, so this is number 24. If velocity and aggregate output remain constant, at 5 and 1,000 trillion, 1,000 billion, 1 trillion. What happens? What happens to the price level if money supply declines from 400 to 300?
I thought they were both 5. I thought that was funny. Fine. What happens to? Is that prior? What's that? Price level. Okay.
Price level.
Couldn't. You C and E were melting together. I
Sorry.
was confused.
Corbin has a hard time reading.
You know it. The way I understand letters has been warped by many a poor handwriting. Namely, yes.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, what? You didn't hear it from me.
He admits to his own bad.
Yeah, I know.
So it's okay.
In decline.
Okay, this is it.
No, it's the percent change. Like the, with income before.
Oh, wait. I got things.
What's that? Mm-hmm. How we doing?
Well, we are kind of working a different way.
Price level.
So I read it off the website.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, not, what did you do? Now, how do you get percentages? So this is the price level. Okay, so there's no percent on it. So when we calculate this equation, we just have the price level in there. And we also have that at the, in order to make these numbers come out, it has to be 2.5. It's not 100. You know how we do the index numbers with 100 with the sliding the decimal place over? So solve for P and you get, what do you get there? 2.5. Should have been 2 initially. Okay.
Or down here right now.
Okay. Yeah, now you're on the right track. Solve it for P for.
The two numbers, you said 100 and 300, and then solve these for both of those, right?
And then I did.
Plus 20%.
Oh, that's what I thought.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I got one.
Yeah.
How you doing? Good? 2 is your initial one there, and then it falls to 1.5. Yep, you're good. You figured it out? Are you on track here, Gene? Get 2 and 1.5? Yep. 2 and 1.5? No? So, what is going on here? Okay, so you got the money supply and velocity, and then you're solving for the price level is P, is the price level. Yeah, I guess you weren't here on Monday, were you? Okay, we kind of spent most of the hour on that on Monday. And it's on the video too. Good, yep, 2, 1.5. All right, so this is just, I wanted to go through a couple things of working through the equation of exchange and how it works. Yeah. Yeah, yep, you got it. So just a little bit of algebra, kind of going back and forth, mostly solving for the different ones. You'll see some other problems like that. Any last questions that I don't know if I made it to everybody. You guys good?
Yeah.
2 and 1.5? Okay.
Yep.
All right, so one of our countries that has an interesting case study recently on hyperinflation is Zimbabwe. And this kind of illustrates the quantity theory of money. This particular thing is just right out of one of the applications in your book. So give that a read. Trill.
Oh, that's nothing. It's play money.
Key. Mm-mm. No, it would be fun. We should have him come in if he'd, because I think he was probably there during that time too, during the heat of it.
Actually, only gonna be a few. We had like 100 trillion.
Oh, did he? Oh, okay. I will. I just saw him yesterday. He was in my MBA class. So, pretty startling results. What did the government try to do when they saw prices were rising so high? What was their reaction to correcting that bad marketplace? Freezing prices, yeah. Now, is that a generally accepted thing among economists, that that's a good idea too? No. So then we like cap it, and it either creates illegal behavior or it kind of spurs a leak somewhere else. So price controls are not a good answer. But you can kind of see the mentality of people around the world for the last 2,000 years. This kind of thing has gone on. Oh, let's just print off money. We need stuff, you know. And then, oh, well, prices are going crazy. Let's just say that. Let's just make it law that they can't be higher than whatever amount. And so they just kind of missed out on some of those important principles. All right, I got a short little video here. That's kind of fun on this, showing the effects. Let's see, where did it disappear to? There it is.
If I'm ever with press.
Okay, so this is on Zimbabwe.
Is that an elephant?
Yeah.
That's bad.
Okay, here we go.
One of the things that we put together as a little display for some of our clients is a series of 27 official notes. It's a currency from the country of Zimbabwe. And if you take a look here, this starts out at $1, and the date on it, I don't know if you can zoom in and see that or not, David, but in 2007, they had ones, and then of course 5s, 10s, and 20s. And this was the currency that was being used. As we well know, what happened, the hyperinflation started to kick in, and they started to print higher and higher denominations as people demanded more and more currency. And so they got up in the 500s and the thousands. We're still in 2007. Here in 2008, they started printing in the tens of thousands. So in a period of less than 1 year, we went from 1s, 5s, and 10s all the way up to 10s and 20,000s. You start looking up here at 50,000, 100,000, 500,000, and $1 million bills, and it just kept going and going and going. Let me show you over here. We get the billions of 1 and 5 and 10 and 20, and then here's a $50 billion bill. On July 4th of 2008, a can of Coke would have cost you $50 billion for breakfast. But at lunchtime, it would be $100 billion. And by the time you got to dinner, it would be $150 billion. Their inflation rate, as you know, was approximately 10 to the 27th power. Something that's just staggering. And by the time they started printing, they said, well, forget the billions, let's just go to the trillions. So they started printing 10, 20, 50, and $100 trillion notes. They hired a German company to print these. And they placed the orders for these, and by the time the German company was finished actually printing them, they weren't worth the paper and the ink that it took to make them. And so the German company never delivered them. They were never circulated. So these are all uncirculated banknotes, but it illustrates how fast, how quickly, and how devastating hyperinflation could be. In 2007 to 2008, in a period of less than 2 years, about 1.5 years, the currency imploded, and now they don't even have a national currency in Zimbabwe. They now use hard currencies, gold and silver.
Quite a lesson, and one I hope
Visual display, yeah.
no one misses that lesson. Thank you so much, Reed.
Thank you, Dave.
Buy real, get real, be real.
So it's kind of interesting to see the actual numbers come to life like that, isn't it? All right, so our next section here brings us into Keynes. So how much was hyperinflation per month? 50%. That's one thing to just kind of remember. That's what at some point it was just kind of agreed upon that we'll call this hyperinflation among the profession. Yeah, 50% is that's 50% per month.
Oh, never mind then.
Yeah. So you go to the grocery store for that can of Coke and it's $1. Yeah, 2 months later it's doubled. And so post-war Germany, Argentina, Michael. Post-war Germany, Argentina recently, fairly recently. So the world has not been immune to this, and you'd kind of think that as we learn from other stories of hyperinflation over the last 100 years that, and 2,000 years for that matter, but especially the last 100 years, that some of these countries would kind of get the picture that it doesn't work. But yet here's Zimbabwe, 2008, and we still got it going on. So Keynes kind of worked with the quantity theory of money and reformulated, made some differences. So we're gonna start with this. So Keynes liquidity preference theory. And this is really a theory of the demand for money. Theory of demand for money. Let me take a couple steps back. Who's this Keynes guy? John Maynard, yes, good. That's a good start. John Maynard Keynes. What did he do that kind of made an impact? He definitely made an impact on the world. There's no doubt about that. Some people question whether it was a good impact or not, but he definitely made an impact.
I remember those raps and he was always a popular.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you remember the rap. I think we'll get to the rap in this class again at some point. I can't resist the rap. So those of you who haven't seen it, you're in for a treat when we get there. So yeah, Keynes, 1936, writes his PhD dissertation on the general theory. So you kind of have to have some cojones to call your PhD dissertation the general theory. Like, what did you come up with as a graduate student, right? The general theory. And so he, along with many others around the world, were troubled with the Great Depression. So 1936, Great Depression time. He claimed that the government could do some good to keep us from going into situations like that. So he's really pointed to as the beginning of bigger government intervention, without a doubt, with the theories that he did. At the same time, we had these New Deal things. I think most economists agree that the real thing that pulled us out of the Great Depression was the beginnings of World War II. But so there's debate back and forth. But at that time, the government was through fiscal policy and monetary policy by this time was starting to act like a stabilizer. Ooh, if we kind of play with the economy a little bit, inject a little money here, tax a little bit here, government spending a little bit here, instead of having this rocky road in the economy, maybe we can make the ride a little smoother, right? We can kind of stabilize the ups and downs of the economy. So that's what Keynes put into play, is the use of government spending in the economy to help bring about prosperity ultimately. All right, so part of his theory ties into money with this liquidity preference stuff. So he asked the question, why do individuals hold money? Why do individuals hold money? So we kind of have three motives. One is for transactions. The transactions motive. So, just as it sounds, we need cash on hand to do our day-to-day purchases. So, day-to-day purchases is one reason that we would want to hold currency. Number two, a precautionary motive. Now this kind of took two forms. It was kind of some just-in-case money, and one of the ways Keynes framed it was, suppose you go to the store and something that you've been kind of wanting for a while is a 25% sale, and it's maybe a bigger ticket item. So maybe people hold back some money for situations where they might have a deal. Another situation might be for kind of an emergency fund type meaning. So all of those unknowns in life, that's what the precautionary thing is. So helps deal with uncertainty in life. And so one thing might be 25% sale. All of a sudden you stumble in the store, oh, we should buy that. Another thing might be a little more Dave Ramsey-ish here, like the emergency fund. Just having funds tucked away just in case something happens. A good idea to do. All right. And then the last one is the speculative motive. So, number three, the speculative motive. So, be prepared to buy low and sell high. So something to do with investments more than just spending on current consumption goods, which is what transactions demand and precautionary motive, or we call it sometimes transactions demand. Transactions motive and precautionary motive are a little more on the consumption side. Speculative motive is on more investing and saving side. All right, we'll pick up there on Friday.